In Chapter 8, we're going to start doing some work in the coordinate plane. So in Section 8.1, we're going to introduce you to the coordinate plane. So the coordinate plane is basically a system formed by the intersection of a horizontal number line called the x-axis and a vertical number line called the y-axis. So if we come down here and see the two examples of the coordinate plane, basically it looks like graph paper. And those bold lines that are running through the graph paper are both the x-axis and the y-axis. So this horizontal line here is our x-axis, and the vertical number line is our y-axis. And notice I said number line, which means there would be some numbers on the on these bold lines. So we'd have maybe like a 1, 2, 3, 4 heading to the right, and maybe a 1, 2, 3, 4 heading up. And then we know on number lines there's also negative numbers. So we'd have -1, -2, -3, -4 as we head left, -1, -2, -3, -4 as we head down. So we have these two number lines that intersect, and that creates our coordinate plane. Now we will be talking about points that are on our coordinate plane on the next page of the notes, and points are always labeled with capital letters. And we can also give each point an ordered pair. An ordered pair is used to represent a point in the coordinate plane, and it's expressed as a parenthesis with two numbers in it. So if we look here, the x and y would actually be replaced with numerical values. So the first coordinate, x, of the ordered pair is the x-coordinate. It tells you how far left or right to move from the origin. So if we come back to this first coordinate plane that we have some numbers on, the origin is in the middle. So it's basically where 0, 0 is happening. So right here, I could point to that. That is what we call our origin, right in the middle where everything is 0. Both the x value and the y value are both 0. And if you move left of the origin, you would be in the negative region. So your x values would be negative if you move to the left of the origin. So x is negative over here to the left of the origin. If you move right of the origin, your x values are positive. So x is positive as you move right from the origin. Now you could probably guess that your y-coordinate is simply the second number in the parenthesis, and it tells you not left or right, but it tells you how far up or down to move from the origin. So if you start at the origin and you move up, you would be in the positive y territory. So your y values would be positive. Y is positive if you move up away from the origin, and your y value is negative if you move below the origin. So in a few minutes, we are going to state the coordinates of some points that have been plotted for us, and we want to be able to get the signs of the numbers right. So that's why we're discussing where the origin is and where the numbers become positive versus negative. All right, the last thing we want to discuss is quadrants. The coordinate plane, when you put the two number lines into the coordinate plane, you actually create 4 separate regions. If we look over to this other piece of graph paper to the right, we're going to give them Roman numerals. They're typically labeled with Roman numerals. So if we come over to the second coordinate plane and we are in the top right region, that would be considered quadrant 1. If we are in the top left region, that would be considered quadrant 2. If we are in the bottom left region, we would be in quadrant 3. And if we are in the bottom right region, we would be in quadrant 4. And so if you think about where the x's and y's are positive versus negative, in quadrant 1, everything would be positive. So if you had an ordered pair that landed in quadrant 1, they would both be positive, your x value and your y value. If you were in quadrant 2, your x values, think about the fact that you'd be left of the origin, would be negative, but you would be above the origin, so your y values would be positive. So in quadrant 2, your x values are always negative and your y values are always positive. In quadrant 3, you would be left of the origin and you would be below the origin. So you would have both negative x values and negative y values. And in quadrant 4, you'd be to the right of the origin, but below the origin. So your x values would be positive and your y values would be negative. So that'll just help you to know whether you are giving the right signs to your numbers, because of course the signs matter. All right, so we're going to start looking at some points. So the graph of xy is just considered the point in the plane that corresponds to the ordered pair xy. So if we look down at this next example, we see a whole bunch of points in a coordinate plane. And we're being asked to write the ordered pairs that correspond to each of those points. So we're going to just go alphabetical here. So we have point A. And if I highlight point A for you, it's right here. I just highlighted it in blue. We want to know where is that in the coordinate plane. And so we would give it an x value and we would give it a y value. So the x value, if we count squares, start here in the middle where we call the origin.
Here's what I found.
How many squares do you move left or right, and how many squares do you move up or down? So if I go from the origin and travel to point A, I'm going to go 1 square, 2 squares to the right. That's a positive direction. And I'm going to go 1 square, 2 squares, 3 squares up. Again, that's a positive direction. So you're going to move 2 squares to the right. You're going to move 1, 2, 3 squares up. So the coordinate, the ordered pair that corresponds to that point would be 2, 3, because that's how you moved away from the origin to travel to point A. If we talk about point B, again, start at the origin and ask yourself, how did you move as you traveled from the origin to point B? And you would be moving, if you start at the origin, you'd be moving 1 square, 2 squares to the left, and you would be moving up 1 square, 2 squares. So the coordinates of point B, or the ordered pair of point B, would be -2 because you went left, but you went up. So, it's a 2. You went up +2. So basically, you're just counting squares, and you're remembering that negative is when you move left, and negative is when you move down. Positive is when you move right, and positive is when you move up. All right, let's look at point C. Point C is happening 2 squares to the right and 0 squares up or down. So if you focus in over here on point C, you went from the origin. Again, you're starting here at the origin, and you're moving 2 squares to the right, which is a positive direction. So 2 squares right, and nowhere in the y direction. So we're going to just put 0. All right, point D, you are moving from the origin down, and you are not moving left or right at all. So if you compare where you are when you are at point D versus the origin, you went down 3 squares, and you didn't go anywhere in the x direction. So you went 0 in the left-right direction, but you went down, which is -3 squares. All right, at this point, I'd say turn off the video, see if you can label the rest of the points, and then come back and check and see if you're getting them right. All right, so let's see how you did. If you labeled point E correctly, it was happening at -3, -1. Point F was happening at +3, -4. Point G is happening at 0, +4. Again, if you say how far left or right of the origin are you, you didn't move left or right of the origin. You simply went up 4 spaces. Point H, if you labeled that one correctly, you went -4 in the x direction, and you went -3 in the y direction. You went left and you went down. Those are negative directions. I is right at the origin, which means you are at 0, 0. And then, do we have a point J? I think I'm done there, aren't I? Yes, we don't have a point J. So those were the coordinates or the ordered pairs that correspond to the points that are in this coordinate plane. Another thing we might ask you to do is plot and label ordered pairs. So the first thing we would need here, I don't see any X or Y axis. So again, you need those number lines. So we're going to draw those in and kind of try to center those in the center of the graph here. So you know what, I should have really have picked a different color. So let me pick a different color here. We're going to draw our X and Y axis in. So the left, right is your x-axis, your up, down is your y-axis. And then we're going to plot those points. Always remember that when you're looking at a parenthesis, your first number is an x value and your second number is a y value. You're always starting in the middle at 0, 0 and traveling left or right first, up or down second. So point A says you're going to travel right, because it's positive, from the origin 4 spaces. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 into the right, and then you're going to go up 1. You would land right here in the first quadrant. So this is point A. Point B says don't go anywhere in the x direction because your first value is 0, but go up 1 in the y direction. So point B would be right on the y-axis. Point C would be 2 to the left of the origin. So you'd go 2 to the left of the origin, and then you'd go up 5. You'd be way at the top up here. That would be point C. Point D, it's asking you to go 3 to the left. So count 3 to the left, but don't go up or down at all. So you'd land right on the x-axis. That would be point D. Again, at this point, you could stop the video and plot the final 4 points and then come back and see if you have them in the correct position. All right, so if you're coming back, your point E should be 3 in the right direction and then go down 2. And you would land here in this 4th quadrant. F, you would be going 1 to the right and 2 down. So you'd again be in that 4th quadrant. G, you would be going to the left 4 spaces. Again, always start in the middle at 0, 0. Go left 4 spaces. And then go down 3 spaces. And that would be your point G. And point H says 0, 0, which means you're right at the origin, right in the middle where your 2 number lines meet. That would be your H. All right, so that was some practice plotting points. I'm not going to do domain and range until we come back together on Thursday. So tonight's homework, let's take a peek at that. We are going to be plotting some points. So I'm going to do 2 of them with you on the front of the worksheet, and then I'll do 2 of them with you on the back of the worksheet. So it's kind of a lot of points, but you're going to get really good practice at moving left, right, up, and down. So on this first worksheet, it's just a riddle. We're going to answer the riddle. It says, why is Mother Kangaroo unhappy when it rains? And when we're done with this, we should have the answer to that riddle. So I'm going to do the first 2 with you, and you're going to finish this off for homework. So if we go down to those answer lines, we're looking here at this first point, and it says it's happening at 4, 6. So if we go to our origin, and we travel to the right 4, and then go up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'd be landing right here, and there's an O there. So on that line, we're going to put an O. So we're going to do one more with you, and the rest I want you to try on your own. So the next point says move 7 to the right, because again, we have positive numbers. So we're going to move 7 to the right, and then we're going to move 2 up. So if we do that, we're going to be right here at point N. So we're going to put an N on the line. All right, I'm going to do one more with you because I want to do one that has a negative. So the next one says -6, +3. So again, put your pencil right at the origin, right at the 0, 0. Move left 6 spaces, and then go up 3. And you'd be up here at point T. All right, I'm going to have you finish the rest of those. So find the letter that corresponds to the ordered pair, and you will have answered the riddle at the top of the paper. The second thing we're asking you to do is to practice plotting some points. So the way this works, I know there's 45 points. That seems like a lot, but it's going to create a shape, And when you're done, you should hopefully know what that shape is. So go in order, go in numerical order, and every time you plot the second point or the next point, connect it to the point you'd previously plotted. So we're going to do the first three. So I'm going to go to, again, to the origin at the 0, 0. I'm going to go 2 to the left. So I'm going to count 2 squares to the left, and I'm going to go up 2. And I'd be landing right here. The next one says go to the left, -4, and don't go up or down at all. So my next point is here at -4. You should immediately connect those two dots. If you don't connect as you go, then this would be a nightmare. You would never be able to figure out what shape is happening. All right, let's do one more together. The next point is happening at -6 and -3. So count 6 squares to the left and then go down 3 squares. And you would land right here. And again, keep connecting the dots as you go. So once you have all 45 points plotted, and if you keep connecting as you go, there will be a shape that reveals itself to you. All right, that is the lesson for today. Hopefully we're back together on Thursday.